Information was published regarding Putin's meeting with business leaders, and specifically it mentioned that the topic of exchanging territories with Ukraine was discussed, as well as the joint management of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant with the Americans. So have you seen this material, and how would you be able to comment on it?
Yes, it did touch upon the subject matter of those discussions that are currently underway and have repeatedly been reported in the Western media and by the Kyiv regime, all in the context of the peace settlement process. These very topics were addressed, and they were mentioned. Yes, they were mentioned. This subject has been very widely covered in the media in many different ways. So yes, these topics were indeed mentioned.
You mentioned contacts between representatives of the Russian and U.S. administration, polls which took place on President Putin's instructions after the document brought by Mr. Dmitriev had been thoroughly analyzed. Could you please elaborate on what these specific documents were, how the Kremlin evaluates their content, and at what level these important contacts actually occurred?
I cannot provide you with that information. We still firmly believe that at this particular moment, the dissemination of this information could very negatively impact the progress of the negotiation process. Therefore, there was a phone contact, and it was decided to continue the dialogue. This is the only thing that we are able to say.
Who established contacts between Moscow and Washington? Who from the presidential administration, and who else?
I'll tell you. From the administration, it was Ushakov.
And is the White House unaware of this?
There were a few people participating in the discussion.
In the quiet halls of the Kremlin, behind sealed doors, Vladimir Putin is testing an idea that could redraw the map of Europe. Late on December 24th, Russia's president gathered the country's most powerful businessmen for a blunt briefing on war, land, and leverage. According to Russia's Kommersant newspaper, Putin signaled something rare, a willingness to discuss territory swaps in Ukraine. But the message came with a line that leaves little room for doubt. Donbas is ours. The report says Putin wants the entire Donbas, every remaining piece still under Ukrainian control. Outside that region, a partial exchange of territory may be possible. Inside it, there is no compromise. As Moscow draws its red lines, diplomacy accelerates elsewhere. In Kyiv, President Volodymyr Zelensky said a meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump will happen in the near future, signaling movement at the highest level after nearly 4 years of war. "We are not losing a single day," Zelensky wrote, adding that a lot can be decided before the new year. Axios reported, citing a Ukrainian official, that this meeting could happen as early as Sunday at Mar-a-Lago. The announcement followed what Zelensky described as a good conversation with Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff and his son-in-law Jared Kushner, key figures in Washington's aggressive diplomatic push to end the conflict. But the path to peace remains narrow and deeply divided. Zelensky has signaled flexibility, saying Ukraine would consider withdrawing troops from parts of its eastern industrial heartland, but only if Russia also pulls back and the territory becomes a demilitarized zone under international monitoring. Moscow has offered no such concession. Instead, the Kremlin continues to insist that Ukraine surrender the remaining territory it still holds in Donbas, an ultimatum Kyiv has flatly rejected. Russia already controls most of Luhansk and roughly 70% of Donetsk. Putin wants the rest. And the stakes go beyond land. According to Kommersant, Putin raised the future of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the largest in Europe, floating the idea of joint Russian-US management. The plant could partially supply Ukraine. It could host crypto mining backed by American interest, a nuclear facility transformed into a geopolitical bargaining chip. All of this unfolds under President Trump's promise to end the deadliest war in Europe since World War II, with negotiations reportedly shaped by secretive understandings reached at a summit in Anchorage, Alaska. The details remain undisclosed, the consequences enormous. On the battlefield, the war shows no sign of pause. Russian drone attacks overnight hit the city of Mykolaiv, knocking out power across parts of the region. Ukraine says Moscow is deliberately targeting energy infrastructure, trying to weaponize winter by denying civilians heat, light, and water. Kyiv has struck back. Using British-supplied Storm Shadow missiles, Ukraine says it hit a major Russian oil refinery in the Rostov region. Multiple explosions were reported. A firefighter was wounded battling the blaze. Ukraine's strategy is clear: drain Russia's oil revenue and choke the resources fueling the invasion. 4 years into the war, diplomacy and destruction now move side by side. Territory is being negotiated. Energy is being weaponized. And as leaders prepare for meetings that could shape history, the question remains: will the next move bring peace or lock the war in place for years to come?
До захисту життя. Сьогодні ж практично годину говорили з представниками президента Сполучених Штатів Америки. Ми говорили зі Стівом Віткофом та Джаредом Кушнером. І це була справді хороша розмова, багато деталей. Є хороші ідеї, ми їх обговорили. Є деякі наші нові ідеї, як наблизити реальний мир. І це стосується форматів, це стосується зустрічей, безумовно, таймінгу. Сьогодні Рустем Умєров ще буде говорити з американською командою. Важливо, якщо у нас вийде організувати те, про що ми говорили сьогодні. І вже готові деякі документи. Я бачу, що вони готові майже повністю. Деякі документи готові. Звісно, щодо сенситивних питань ще треба попрацювати, але ми разом з американською командою розуміємо, як це все забезпечити. Найближчі тижні теж можуть бути інтенсивними. Дякую, Америко. І дякую всім, хто продовжує свій тиск на Росію заради того, щоб там зрозуміли на 100%, що затягування війни буде мати жорсткі наслідки для них, для Росії. Була сьогодні доповідь Павла Паліси по питаннях, які додають нам можливості на фронті. Я підписав укази про відзначення наших воїнів державними нагородами. І кожен, хто зараз захищає наші позиції, всі, хто зараз на бойових завданнях, на бойових постах, всі, хто дає Україні захист від російських штурмів, від російських ударів, всі ви, наші воїни, робите наші дипломатичні позиції сильнішими.